and the fact that people could see it and people enjoyed it, that was kind of like, for me, like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be so much fun.
Who is Xander John Pryor?
I'm a visual creative artist. I went to school for graphic design. Professionally, I work for a creative digital agency based in Maryland. But I'm also an artist at the core. I paint, I shoot photography, and I'm a videographer as well. I pretty much do a whole bunch of things just to be creative, and that's who I am.
What is art to you?
Very interesting question. So to me, art is any and everything. Art could be sound, could be, nature, all those things. So everything can be art to me. It's about what's good art, what's better art. You can kind of have that conversation. But to me, everything is art as long as it's appreciated. So my art is very influenced by my culture. I grew up in West Africa, Nigeria. I'm a Yoruba boy. And my culture is very colorful. So that kind of bleeds its way into what I do. I love a lot of color in painting, in graphic design, website design, whatever it is I'm doing. My work tends to be very colorful. I also got lucky that I got some very, very structural, good design knowledge while I was at Towson. So I combine my structural knowledge of good design and what is, what looks good and all of that with my culture and my love for color and trying new things, and that's kind of how I get my unique design look and feel.
Say that you went to Towson. Were you exposed to different fields of study at Towson?
Absolutely. So I remember at Towson, I did sound art, I did sculpture, I did painting. So just to get into the graphic design field itself, you had to take a whole bunch of general art classes. So that exposure to different forms of art is kind of how I got that feeling of what art should be. And it's a bunch of things, it's everything. So Towson definitely did expose me to a variety of art that I didn't even think was, was possible. I discovered that I actually love more abstraction in my art. Then I'm less of even in my painting, I'm less of a naturalistic painter. I'm more of an abstract, creative thinking. I'm always trying to bring a concept to life rather than trying to replicate what's in nature. So I think I'm grateful to Towson for that exposure.
How long have you been working in the field?
So how long have I been working in the field of design? So since 2012 when I graduated. 2013. So I've been, since straight out of college, I had a design job for agency, and I've kind of just worked at different agencies since then, and that's been like my professional day job. And then I do like my quote-unquote side hustle, which I started. My first business was in photography, GXB Photography, which is my initials. And what I just did in the beginning was just people portraits. I did weddings, and over the years, I continue to expand on what I did. I tried fashion photography, I tried modeling photography, nature photography, did horse photography for a little bit. And I think it's more of like the core of who I am. I like to explore and experiment and figure out what I don't like by trying a whole bunch of things. And so that's kind of how I started to narrow down what I do. But I would say when I got into design, straight out of college, it was more working as a professional, and then over the years I just kind of turned my hobbies into professional work. JXV Photography, so John Alexander Bright Photography. That's what I started as, and then I changed it to Bright Studios, because then when I first started as an artist, I pretty much was just doing photography, and then and I started, actually, as all good businesses, I started it in my mom's basement, so hopefully it's heading in the right direction. Yeah. So I started it there, and after graduating college, I worked as a graphic designer, like I said, as an agency. So as I continued to grow in my professional career, I started to grow also in my business at the same time as well. So I felt like, well, JXB Photography made me seem like all I did was photography. So I changed it up to Bright Studios, which more encompasses everything I do, creative direction, art direction, video, animation, all of that. It felt like I could put all of those things under one roof because I had all of those skills either from experience or from client work, or just from me exploring and trying new skills. And animation I picked up after I finished school. Actually, I went to MICA for a little bit to learn animation, and that was going on great until COVID cut it short a little bit, but I still learned enough to get the skill.
In what field were you previously in before making the change to design?
So I started off as a science student. All throughout when I was living in Nigeria, I was a science student, and art to me was just kind of like a hobby, something I did on the side. So I remember in high school I would paint, I would do logos for the clubs I was in, I would make logos for people just for fun. I never really thought of it as a career, and I actually had an amazing, I was taking a technical drawing class, and the technical drawing teacher in Nigeria was like, look, you would be way better served as an artist, because he just saw that I just did not like the constraint of technical drawing. It was very constraining, but I like to just be creative and go wild. So he was the first person that put it in my head, go to the United States and be a graphic designer. And so when I came here, I was still of the mindset of being a science student. I wanted to be a medical doctor. I did about 3 years of it in community college, and I transferred to Towson to continue. And then I just took some general art classes just for fun to see if I would like them. And those ended up being like my favorite classes. So I just switched over to arts and just never looked back. So from science to arts.
So how were you exposed to art?
So I would say my very first exposure to art in general was my elder brother. He knew how to draw cars, and he taught me how to draw cars. And I got so good at them that I was selling art drawings of cars in primary school, and people were buying the stuff, and that was my first side hustle. And so that was the very first, my first exposure was my brother teaching me how to draw. And then fast forward to when I got into the US, a photographer named Michael Jackson, he's still in the Maryland area, amazing photographer, by the way. He brought me under his wings, taught me photography. I started off modeling for him first. And then soon enough, I was just like, I want to be behind the camera. And he was so gracious enough to let me use his camera. And he basically taught me some of the tricks of photography. I still use some of the things I learned from him today. And at the same time also, while I was at Towson, I forget his name now as well, I learned from an amazing photography teacher as well. He did some amazing work. He'd done work for Coca-Cola, Chevy, all of those things. He was very strict, but I loved, learning from someone who had so much experience. So I just perked up and I just drank as much as I could learn from him. He taught me everything from the simple, when you go to a studio, roll back the wires, he was that detailed about everything. And I think all of that knowledge and experience has stayed with me till today. And those people, I'm so grateful to them that they've kind of influenced what I do to this day.
How was it different when you use computer and what's in the computer?
So I do tend to use different mediums to just convey my creativity, if that's the best way to put it. I'm a digital artist. I live in 2022, so digital art is very important to me. So I tend to create a lot of my art on the computer. I spend a lot of time in Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, Lightroom. Those are kind of the main software I kind of know like the back of my hand. I also paint, so I do love to have a physical medium, something I can touch. I pretty much stick to oil painting. I like the tradition of it. It's one of the best forms of art. It's super relaxing to me as well. I also I love sculpture. I would build some things. I remember I had a house a couple years ago, and I just started trying to do some sculptural design work. None of it really panned out, but that's kind of who I am. I'll experiment with different types of medium. Photography, I love a camera as well. To me, photography is just another form to where I can express myself. And like I said, color, balance, getting the eye to enjoy the visual of what you're seeing. So these are just different ways I consider all these different mediums as just another avenue for me to unleash my creativity, and I just try to have fun with it.
What was your eureka moment? The moment when you knew this was what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I think I was on the edge all the way at Towson when I was doing design before you had to apply to actually get into the graphic design program. So I was in this arts class, painting class, and I did this self-portrait of myself, and I really didn't think of much of the painting, but the reaction that people got from it and the different interpretations that people got from this painting, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed putting subliminal messages into my art, and the fact that people could see it and people enjoyed it, that was kind of like, for me, like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be so much fun. I want to create super work that people really, really do appreciate and people love. I think that's, for me, that I keep going back to that moment of the reaction I got to a painting I made. That it was less of like, oh, how beautiful it was more of like the creativity and the concept behind it that people really enjoyed, and that really always stuck with me.
How does your background society influence your art?
So I definitely know for sure my background does affect my art. Like I said, my culture, coming from somewhere that enjoys color, even down to like Yoruba food, jollof rice is like super colorful. A lot of people are enjoying jollof rice these days. So I definitely do know color. That's a huge thing in my work. I also do art overall. The artistic expression of doing something unique. I don't have a better word for that, but that's something I feel like comes from my culture. And then also the religion, I grew up as a Christian, in a Christian household. So I don't really explore extreme boundaries of art, even though I appreciate them. So rarely would you see nudity, for example, in my work. And I feel like that's my Christian background. That I wouldn't say limits me, but that's just kind of part of who I am. I still believe, my Christian background does affect what I do. So those are just samples of where I feel like my background kind of pushes me into particular places as to what I enjoy doing or what I like to do. I think they say your environment molds you. So I think, where I grew up, the visuals I saw growing up, all of that stuff is still in my head, and it finds its way somehow into my work to this day. What is
your
I follow this saying, everything is designed, but few things are designed well. And if you kind of don't think too much of that saying, it really doesn't mean much. But if you think about it, really, everything is designed. Your car, your nights, your shoes, everything is designed. But where you have to spend good money to get good things, it's when something is designed very, very well. So that's where I try to be in good design. And good design doesn't always have to be, difficult or challenging. One of the favorite schools of design that I like is Apple overall. And to me, why Apple succeeds so much in design is because it just works. Like you open up a device from an Apple box and you turn it on and you just almost expect it to just instantly work. Another good system I think of is IKEA. They don't include actual words of instructions in their instruction manual, and I think that's good design because they've made it so simple that just pictures is good enough for you to get instructions. So to me, design doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be extremely hard. It shouldn't even be difficult for the user to use it. It should be easy. It should feel like second nature. And to me, that's good design or great design, and that's where I strive to do in all my work. Whether it's photography, I don't need to over-edit a photo to where now it's more about my editing skills versus me actually telling a good story or taking a good photograph of a person. So I always try to find that boundary of where does it become good design and where does it become good work. And it's usually, it's right there on your nose. Sometimes it's easier than you think to just do good design. And if you keep it that it should work and it should be easy, those are some of the things I keep in mind. Whether it's even designing a website, I want it to be easy. It should be accessible. Everyone in the world, even based on your background or whatever, should be able to use a website that's well designed. So I bring those type of consistent thinking into everything I do. Whenever I'm designing and I want to get into a vibe or a mood, I play a particular music. Sometimes it's orchestra, sometimes it's Beethoven, sometimes it's Future.